Hey everyone, welcome back to Arbitrary 20. Today we're going to be talking about finding a good group.
Yeah, so figure let's start this off with the way you start off any D&D campaign, talking about session zeros. So I'll start off just I've been in a few different campaigns at this point, a few different groups. This one is, of course, definitely the best one, and we've had we've had a session zero for every campaign. I even think we've had a mid season, like a mid campaign session zero. And I think that was pretty helpful.
Yeah, I think between you and I, we've been through at least a dozen session zeros, and they're essential. There's no other word for it.
Yeah.
They're really required. I think fundamentally in a game about communication, you need to be able to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
And, typically some session zeros, they start off and they're just, like, oh, what don't you want in this game? Like, are you like not a fan of blood? Can you not handle gore? Is there certain things that can't be talked about? And those are good things to talk about. But
I know that what's funny is for the Coming of the Dragon campaign, which is the most I think Netherdeep started after it, but one of the more recent campaigns on this channel, when we did our session zero, I was like, here's what I want to do as well. I was like, I initially pitched it as a kind of more of a scary thing. Now, I'm not going to say I've done it right, but, I was kind of like, hey, I want this to feel scary. I want this to feel tense. I want it to be, a little bit more Call of Cthulhu-y, because I wanted to test out my skill at doing that.
Of course, yeah.
But not everyone's okay with that. And I think that we actually, I even wanted to do, I'm a big gamer, and so I will play things like Dark Souls, which are a very particular way of playing. And I was like, maybe I could transfer that and like this campaign. And I asked, and everyone was like, well, we get it. You like Dark Souls. Let's not.
Well, that's the good part about having a session zero is you've given the players the choice.
Yeah.
You've given them the option on whether they want to go more scary. I mean, I've played in groups before where they would not be able to handle a scary situation, not because they couldn't handle like the spookiness of it, but more so they like fun. They like stupid things. They like dumb things. They like things that are just crazy.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't blame them. I like a good moment where I can laugh and just be absolutely dumb and have a goofy character. I've played goofy characters before. But at least you gave them the choice. That's the important part.
And what the biggest thing that like I try to preface most, if I ever give advice or if I say you should do something, it's because I've done it wrong. In a very similar situation, I was like, hey, let's do a scary session. And I didn't really tell the players that. And then lo and behold, they didn't interact with it. And then when I said, hey, a week ahead of time, hey, let's do a scary session. Hey, let's, do whatever. It went great, but there was definitely a moment of friction where my expectations as the DM and my players' expectations weren't what we agreed. And at the time, it was totally my fault. And, you just have to do that and move on.
Yeah, you just need to be able to communicate, really. I mean,
yeah,
it's hard not to stress that enough because I feel like that's how you find a good group. Obviously, we probably should have started with this, but you have to obviously get a hold of a group. The group of us that are here, that are on this channel, we all were friends starting out initially, and then it slowly snowballed into this. But I mean, for other people, I know it's not as easy.
Yeah.
I've heard of a lot of situations where people just don't have the access and they don't have the way to get a hold of a group. I know that I've heard, I think, of like school groups at like universities and things do that sort of thing. They have like D&D events that you can participate in. So, I mean, it's really just getting out, which I know for some people can be hard. And I mean, maybe that's just something that you just have to progress towards. I mean, if this is your goal to play, then you kind of have to progress towards being a little more social. It's probably a little blunt, but it's kind of how you have to be. Like, I'm sorry to put it like that, but in order to be social, you can't be antisocial.
Yeah, I do get what you mean.
I'm probably saying that poorly.
Yeah, and when I was in college, actually, long before Arbitrary 20, I just wanted to play D&D, and I went to my school, and I was like, "Hey, you guys have a D&D club, right? Could I join?" And I actually knew the president, so I was in marching band in college, and I just so happened to know the president of the D&D club, and so I go to her and I'm like, "Hey, can I join? Are there any groups open?" And she was like, "Oh yeah, come on." And I'm like, "Cool." And I was like, "So can I play with you, the person that I know?" And she was like, "Nope, my group's full." And as much as I respect the fact that her group was full, that meant that I went in and I was all of a sudden playing with a bunch of strangers who, man, we did not gel. I mean, I wanted to do, I'm a big story person. I like having a narrative in D&D. Not to say that like other things don't. I just mean like narrative over maybe other things that other people prioritize. And they were not. They were very much just a let's screw around, horny bard, yada yada yada. And as someone who A, was with a group of strangers, and B, is just not that type of person. They were describing certain acts that they were performing with NPCs, and I was like, well, I am uncomfy. And I only went to one session, actually.
But you learned two things from that. You learned, firstly, that you had to do it and try it to see, because you didn't know until you tried it.
Yeah.
And then second on that, you found a group and you realized this group is not meant for me.
Yeah. I had a similar situation, when around the time we started Arbitrary 20, my roommate wanted to run Lost Mines of Fendover, because that's kind of like if you're going to run a D&D module, especially for the first time, like that's like the one you're going to do. And he ran it, and man, we had a session 0, but we might as well not have. We just weren't compatible. We ended up having a good time. My roommate and I are still friends, so there you go. But, it's just sometimes you just got to pick the people. And even with a good session 0, sometimes, there's still just friction there.
I mean, I don't think that's a bad thing, though. I mean, friction sometimes is good. I remember seeing, it was a one-shot Questers clip, and of course he does his comedic act all the way through, and then he got to the end, and the punchline wasn't like a normal funny punchline. It was kind of just like sometimes he said that sometimes your friends don't need to be in your D&D group. Like you can have your friends and you can have your D&D group, and they can be separate, and that is okay. There's nothing wrong with having friends separate.
Yeah.
Which I think is an interesting take, and that kind of has rolled around in my mind for as long as I've seen the video. It's okay for incompatibility. That's just how life goes.
That is. I mean, we can draw from our first group. All of us were friends long before we were playing D&D, and that's not this group. And it folded.
Groups.
Yeah, we've both been in
lots of groups.
I've been playing D&D for a while, guys. But that's just it. We played, and I'm still friends with most of the people in that group. And the reason that I'm no longer friends with them isn't because of a D&D fallout. It was just because life. And I remained friends with them, and I'm still friends with some of them, to be clear, long after. that D&D group ended.
But schools across the board is, I mean, that's where I've met a majority of my friends. That's where I've met a lot of people. I've met so many people at school and at the university and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, especially another thing too, in this day and age with the internet, there's a lot of access to social media.
Mm-hmm.
I believe there's subreddits.
Yeah.
You can get access to groups.
Yeah. So I don't know how much on Reddit you are.
Not at all.
Probably a good thing. But as someone who is on Reddit, there are subreddits for everything. I know that there are subreddits for looking for a group. There are subreddits for helping you do all that type of thing. So that's definitely an option. You know, I know that there are Facebook groups and Instagram groups and stuff like that where, you know, you can reach out to people and kind of request, hey, I want to play. You know, and I mean, the big thing is you just have to ask.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, the way I got started into role-playing games, it wasn't with D&D, was I asked a friend of mine. I said, hey, you play, right? I had heard that he played, and he was like, yeah, I play. And I was like, can you teach me how to play? And he was, sure. And so we got together, and me and one other friend and him got together, and we played Weird Wars, which was it was his favorite one, which is based on Savage Worlds, which is a different thing than D&D. But that was just it. I asked, and this was in high school marching band. You know, we have known each other since high school, and that's, you know, when we knew each other before that, but that's when that's how we started playing.
You came to me and you said, you know, do you want to play this game? And I remember after some conversation about it, I finally joined.
It took some convincing.
There was a little bit of convincing. I don't know what it was.
He wasn't a nerd yet.
Okay.
I changed. But yeah.
Let the record be whatever it is. Either way, you asked me and then I segued in. So, I mean, maybe it's just either way, it's taking the leap.
Yeah.
It's getting the opportunity set up so that way you can play.
Yeah. And, you know, other ways of doing it, you know, so we talked about school, but, you know, if you're not in school or something like that, I know that where we live, there's several game stores in town. We live in a pretty small town, but there's, you know, 3 or 4, maybe even more nowadays, you know, game stores.
They're surprisingly, well, not, I mean, maybe surprisingly or not surprisingly, becoming more popular.
Yeah.
And it could be just because gaming is becoming even more supported, even more part of culture.
Yeah.
Like I remember there was a time where gaming used to kind of be like an outcast type thing. And now it's sort of be like, well, you haven't left yet.
Yeah.
So we may as well accept you. And so, you know, so gaming kind of is being brought up, and I'm happy to see the game stores coming up.
Yeah.
But that is a great place to play games. I personally have never done that. Could be fun. It's just an attempt to experience something new.
Mm-hmm. The tough part about game stores that should be kind of mentioned, perhaps, you know, it's open to everyone. And so, you know, when we were talking about session zeros and kind of evaluating people to play with before, that is so much more important when you start playing with strangers on the internet, at a game store. I know that there's a bar in our town that's all about D&D. It's a D&D bar. It literally has a giant die like on it, like as you walk in. And that's, you know, but you got to be careful. You got to say, you know, okay, I'm here. I'm playing with strangers. I've taken this leap. You got to make sure that you're, you know, game stores attract some weird people sometimes. There's always the horror stories of, you know, women being creeped out by some dude while she's just trying to play D&D or Magic the Gathering or something. You know, and you just gotta be aware that, you know, that happens, as bad as it is. And as bad as it makes all of us look, it's just how it is. And you got to just kind of be aware of that and fight against that kind of thing, and state when you're not comfortable and state what you're not okay with.
True. That is the other side of, that goes back to the beginning, what we were talking about with communication. You sometimes, like in a game store, you have to be continuously communicative over the situation.
Yeah.
As it's constantly evolving, you have to be able to say, I don't like this, I do like this is okay, this is terrible, this is awesome. And it will probably help avoid situations like that, but also it's the group that's around you, as well as the managers of the store and other entities within that store need to be able to help make it a safe environment for everyone.
Yep.
But that is a good point to bring up. I did forget about that.
Yeah.
That is unfortunately kind of the dark side sometimes, but I think it's still something that should be good, because some people rely on that as an access to play this game.
Yeah. I know that my friends who play Magic the Gathering, which made by the same people, but a very different game than D&D, but it's the same thing. If you need a group to play with.
Right.
And, it's the same thing if they go to game stores, and that's where you get those horror stories. And so that's just, something you got to keep in mind whenever you play with strangers. But yeah, that's just the biggest thing.
And then there's another place, I don't know if we brought it up yet, talking about work.
Yeah.
In your workplace, I've been in multiple situations in workplaces where I've had lots of friends. None of them were interested in D&D, so I can't really cater my experiences to this particular topic. But work is where you meet a lot of people.
Yeah.
Typically.
Yeah.
Depends on your job, of course, but for the most part, you're going to meet a lot of people. There's a good chance that maybe one or two of them likes gaming of some type, and maybe you could turn them on to, tabletop games, and
yeah,
who knows where I'll go from there, right?
Yeah, I mean, one thing is, my boss, when I was really new at my current job, I mentioned offhand that I played D&D, and now he and I will just talk about it at work. And we don't play together, obviously, but, that's...
I haven't crossed that bridge.
Well, he DMs too, so maybe... I don't know if that would work out. I don't think I could play D&D with my boss, if I'm being honest. But that's the thing of saying, that's how you bond with people. You meet people and you just say, you talk about alike interests, and, when you see someone, eventually you might find you have similar interests. And at work, don't play it while you're working. But, I mean, if you can get away with it, I'm not endorsing anything. Arbitrary 20 stance on doing work or doing D&D while you're at work is... do
your job so you don't get fired.
Don't get fired, but, hey.
But make friends.
That's
get
what
to know
saying.
people, talk on your breaks and things. Once again, another reoccurring trend. You have to talk. You have to be able to be comfortable with getting into those groups, so that way you can play this game. Because it's fun once you get in, and it's a huge leap of faith. It's, you're learning something new. You're getting to know people you potentially may not have ever met before. Huge leap.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to end this video here. So thanks for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe, and comment down below on some experiences that you have had with getting into D&D groups, or any tabletop group for that matter. So thanks for watching.